how are you? It's good to have you here. So in this tutorial, we're going to be talking about the following agenda, which is installing Git on Windows, creating GitHub and GitLab accounts, downloading and setting up of GitHub Desktop, creating remote repositories on GitLab, Git cloning using HTTPS, Git adding, committing and pushing using GitHub Desktop, and where to learn more about Git. So straight away, we're going to start with installing Git on Windows. So for installing Git on Windows, just open your browser of choice and search for Git. Since we're doing a tutorial for Windows, just select download for Windows. Then in this section, choose 64-bit for Windows. So the download should start, and since it's about 57 megabytes, shouldn't take long. Just wait it out for a bit. So if you already have Git, so a way of checking if you already have Git installed on your laptop or PC, yes, just type this command git -- then version. So you see we're getting this prompt that Git is not recognized. This means Git is not yet installed. So yes, the download finished. Let me pull up the installer. Okay, so this is the Git installer. So just going to choose in this situation next. Let's choose as it is, leave as it is, as it is. In this section, if you're familiar with Vim, use Vim. But for most users, most programmers use Visual Studio Code, and it's familiar with very many of us. So I recommend, for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to choose Visual Studio Code and go next. Then for the rest of it, just leave yes. Now in this section, I highly recommend that you choose the second option, which is going to automatically add Git to path. So what this basically means simply is that you'll be able to access Git from anywhere in the command line while it's in the path. Of course, we could still go and add it after, but that would add a lot of process and it's a bit tricky at times. So we select the second option for this, and everything else should remain just as it is. Then the installation should start and it shouldn't take long. So this right now we are dealing with installing Git on Windows. So immediately after this is done, we're going to do GitHub and GitLab accounts. So just to check, yes, that is almost done. Shouldn't take longer. Yes, that's just about done. Good. The download is done. So Git has now been successfully installed. So you remember here when we ran this command that we got Git is not recognized. So if we run the same command again, you get the Git version 2.41.0.windows.1. So this means Git has been successfully installed. So we are done with that. So the next part is creating GitHub and GitLab accounts. So on the same browser, you just open another window and go to GitHub. Then from there you select sign up if you're new. If you already have an account, you don't need to go through this process. So just enter your email here. It could be your work, personal email, or anything. sorry, let me choose different username. So okay, it's just a simple puzzle. Click start to identical objects. Okay, so now we're creating an account. So they're going to send you an email on the account that you used to, on the email that you used to create an account. They're going to send you a code, sorry. And yeah, I just got my code, 693411122. Good. So yeah, I could fill all this student. Yes, these don't really have to be accurate. You could actually just do this later on. Actually, I'd just skip personalization for now, since all this can be changed in your settings later on. Great. So we have our GitHub account, and here we go to the settings. Here you'll see your username, and you could see you could create a repository here, and yeah, a lot of very interesting things that you could just go. I recommend that you just look around, like check the buttons and things, so that you're also able to fully learn. I know at first it may be a bit too much, but you'll get the hang of it. So for the second part of part 2 was creating a GitLab account. So we just go and open another browser. Now go to GitLab. And yeah, select GitLab, the official account. And we go to sign in. Since we don't yet have an account, but there's really not a button for signing up immediately, so you just go to sign in. Then when you're signing in, come here. If you don't have an account, register. If you already have an account, just sign in. Since you don't have an account, you just register. So use Jeff coder. It's just Alan and Jeff coders. Good. So for email, I'll use the same one I used. The password doesn't really, it's fine. Then we register. So again, they'll send you an email. So once they send you the code, yes, just to see my code, it's 560033. And that should be done. So refresh the page. Yeah, again, these don't have to be accurate. You could just, yeah. So here you could just create, let's say Justin hackathon. It's fine, then you create a project. Good, so we're done with creating a GitLab account. That's really, really good. So the next step now here we have is downloading and setting up of the GitHub Desktop. Quite simple. So for this, go again to your browser another tab, GitHub, search GitHub Desktop, then install GitHub Desktop. So yeah, select this visit download page for GitHub, then download for Windows. So yeah, this is a download file. It's about 130 megabytes, so it shouldn't take long. It's a few seconds. Now, once you run the installer, you'll find it in your Windows. You'll find it in a folder called Downloads. You'll just have this pop up on your screen. There's really no setup with instructions or anything. It'll just bring this, then once it's done, it's going to launch, just as it has done right now. So immediately before doing anything, the first thing you want to do is first go to Options and sign in with your GitHub account. Remember, we created a GitHub account. So just open GitHub Desktop, and now it should have successfully linked. Good. So Jeff Ultimate is now linked. So your GitHub account is now linked to GitHub Desktop. That's good. So now the next step here is creating a remote repository in GitLab. Go back to your GitLab account, select this plus icon here, new project or repository. Then create blank project. So give the project your name of choice. I'm going to call mine Hackathon 1. Then leave everything else as it is. Then create project. Then there, you've successfully created your project. So now the next step is cloning of this repository using HTTPS. So straight ahead, we're going to go to cloning of repository. So here in your GitLab account, we have where we created the repository. You'd see here in blue clone. So click on the arrow on the right and select. So this clone with SSH and clone with HTTPS. So select clone with HTTPS and copy the URL. So go now to your GitHub Desktop and clone repository. Then it's very simple, just go here and copy and clone. So here it says they were unable to authenticate GitLab. So basically what this means, since GitHub and GitLab are not one, like they're not affiliated, so it needs authentication from your GitLab account. So for this, we need our username and a password. But for the password, we need something called a personal access token, which we're going to go through how to get that. So for our username, you just click on this. It's kaiji-gym. So let's just first type that in. Kaiji-gym. Then for the password, we're going to use a personal access token. So for this, you just go here, then select preferences. Then here, see access tokens. So this is where, remember we saw personal access tokens here in GitHub Desktop. So that is what we'll need to do. We need to create one. So you could give the token a name. So you could call it alpha. I'm going to call mine alpha token. And you could decide to set an expiration date, or you could leave just this as default. So from what you see here is basically there are different privileges that you could allow a certain token to have. So since you're the owner, it's okay taking all this since it's you who's the owner. But say for example, there are people who you only want to be able to read your code, or some people who you want to be able to write and read. You could just choose what to select, what to check and what not to check. So without further ado, we're going to create the personal access token. So the access token is already created here. So just copy it there, go to GitHub Desktop and paste it. Save and retry. So that means that the repository, it has been successfully cloned. So now, the first thing that we want to do now is do adding, committing, and pushing using GitHub Desktop. So the first step we're going to take is first finding where our repository is being stored, or the files in our repository are being stored in our local machine. So for that, just go to GitHub Desktop, right click up here and choose Show in Explorer. Just delete this, don't need that. So let's create a sample file that you can use to show how we add, commit, and push. So let's call it test file txt. And in this text file, we could just put text inside and say hello world, I love coding. Close that. Good. So as you can see, we have this file is currently only in our local machine, or in our local PC or local desktop. If you go back to GitLab, you cannot see the file here, and that is where adding, committing, and pushing comes in, and we're doing this on GitHub Desktop. So the first thing, we're going to go back to um, GitHub, and you see here GitHub has already noticed the changes have been made, right? So we're going to follow the format, the order of adding, committing, and pushing. Remember, it's adding, committing, and pushing. So here you see GitHub has already recognized that you made the changes in your local repository here, right? But you need to push these changes to your online repository so that it can be accessed by everyone. As you can see here, the test file is not existing. It doesn't just automatically go, you have to actually push it there. So what we're going to do here, so GitHub Desktop simplifies the whole process of committing, of pushing code, where committing and adding, or adding and committing, I just put into one button, which is this commit here. You don't have to add then commit. You just put your message there, like your short description, then commit. You just press commit to main. So that is committed. Now what you just need to do, you could either press push to origin or push to origin, either of them would work, which is the final step of now updating your online repository. Shouldn't take long, just a few seconds. So that is done. If you now come here and refresh the page, you will see your test file .txt appearing here and hello, I love coding. And with that, we have successfully covered almost everything that you need to learn when it comes to getting to adding, committing, and pushing. So this is basically the basics of using Git and how to incorporate Git in your life as a programmer. Of course, there's so many other things you're going to learn, you could learn, which is why I recommend going through the Git official website. Like, yes, just click here on Git. If you want to learn more about, you could just go into documentation. So here you'll see a lot of information, a lot of all these commands, git config, git add. You could learn so much more. But also, if you're more of a tutorial type of person, like video tutorials, like this one, for instance, they're also very, very good YouTubers that do a quite decent job when it comes to familiarizing people with Git. So just one I highly recommend. Just search Git tutorial. One I found really comprehensive and straightforward and easy to learn is this one by Fried Camp. This is Git and GitHub for beginners, a crash course. It's about 1 hour and 8 minutes, but with this you'll have almost everything you need to know about Git. So again, you could go to this if you want documentation. If you want something more visual and practical, something you can listen and interact with, I recommend going with this one by Free Code Camp. So that said, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening, and happy coding, and hope you have a fun experience with Git.